Hello, everyone, and happy Saturday. Welcome back to Spiritual Context for Worldly Chaos, formerly known as the Aquarian. Today, I have the pleasure of reintroducing all of you to Sheryl Wagner, my favorite psychic medium. And some of you may have heard her 2023 interview, so you know a lot about her already. But for those of you who are just tuning in now, if you'd like to get to know her from 2023, you can use the description box below and just go straight back to part 1, or you can jump in right now in 2026. And make sure to subscribe to this podcast if you want to be alerted every time a new episode airs. My podcast is brought to you by Substack, and if you want to subscribe to my Substack as well, you will get alerts via email for each episode. And you'll also receive every Sunday my newsletter called This Week in the Sky, where I let you know everything that's coming up in astrology in terms of transits, full moons, new moons, eclipses, retrograde motion, and I talk a lot about what astrology is, and I also offer tarot readings for the week ahead. So if you like that kind of thing, feel free to subscribe to my Substack, and I'd love to get to know you more over there. This podcast is and will always be dedicated to magic. Ethereal magic, material magic, mental magic, and transformative magic. As we continue on throughout the year, you will hear deeper and deeper conversations that open your mind and help you to transform in ways that you maybe never thought you could. So check out the description box below for more information, including Sheryl's website and Substack, and her first book, Uncovering Intuition. And now let's listen to Sheryl tell us all about being a psychic medium. Hello, Sheryl.
Hello. Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
So good. You're the first person I'm interviewing on this new journey in my podcast.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's awesome. I'm excited.
Yeah, and I was hoping you'd be the first person I interviewed.
Oh.
You know, because we have such a personal relationship.
Yeah. It's an easy conversation.
And this is Jessica's first interview with me, which is super exciting. We both really bond over the esoteric, psychic, spirituality, personal transformation. But I'm not sure if she's ready to ask a ton of questions, but it'll be cool if she wants to jump in at some point.
Yeah.
I wanted to start this interview out with asking you how you identify yourself now in the psychic community, because
Sure.
You're not only a psychic medium, but you're also a writer, a teacher, and I'm curious if you identify with one over another right now.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you just asked me that question because someone just asked me that yesterday. So maybe that's like a sign I need to define that for myself. But I hope, and my answer yesterday when someone asked me that was, I hope I'm always a medium first. I really do feel like that's the heart of what I do. And so when I say, I guess there's different types of mediumship, but evidential mediumship. So, someone is booking a session with me and I'm connecting them with their past loved ones, with their past, animal companions, or doing an intuitive reading where it's more of soul to soul connection and we're focused on, their life or their soul path. That is really the heart of what I do. And everything else I feel like is just built around that. But I also, I do teach mediumship, intuitive development. I teach tarot, and I am a writer. I feel like that's who I am. I'm writing a second book. I don't know if you know, I'm like off of all my socials right now. I'm only on Substack. I'm trying to create some space, and I'm writing a book about mediumship. I'm at the very beginning, but I am still excited to say that I'm doing that finally.
That's extremely exciting, and everyone heard it here first because that's it's literally in its conception right now.
It's true.
That's amazing. Well, okay, so then that's awesome because actually I didn't know if you were going to say healer because I think a lot of people have a catch-all term of like healing of, what you do is very healing, but I think it's really refreshing that you stick with the fact that it is about mediumship for you. It is about that connection for you.
Yeah, I think this work, I think it's really beautiful that we can use like so many different words to describe what we do. And I obviously am in touch with a lot of, intuitives, mystics, seers, and I love all of that language. But I also am in touch with the general public and folks that maybe have never heard of mediumship. They've never thought about it until that moment when they lose that person, or, their life just the rug is ripped from under them. They have that tower moment and they're just searching and they're Googling and they're like, who can help me? Who can help me understand? How can I connect? And so I really am meeting those folks. So I'm a huge fan of using really simple language to explain what I do. Anytime we do intuitive work, mediumship work, there is this healing energy that's exchanged, right? It's like healing through spoken word. It is therapeutic in nature. I do it, I think, for the healing. That's probably why my soul is expressing this. But I really like to make it simple when I explain what I do.
So you have a mediumship circle, you write, you teach, you have clients. What is it that you offer that you enjoy the most out of everything?
So hard. That I can't really pick one thing that I enjoy the most, but I do really enjoy those sessions. And maybe enjoy isn't the right word. I feel a strong sense of purpose. Like when I've just finished working for the day, I had 2 sessions today and I feel like, okay, I've sort of met my purpose for the day. Like I'm there as that conduit and now I'm done and I can relax. I don't know how it would feel to stop doing that. I'm certainly open to anything else they have in store. But I also feel that like writing and teaching is part of it too.
I really appreciate that you're saying that at the core of you and your purpose is just being psychic, because I think that people, if you don't really understand what psychic is, tend to see you as much bigger than I think we see ourselves, that we're supposed to be gurus, we're supposed to know absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And the pressures of social media, the pressures of society pushing us to be these bigger figures, and what we really do is on the ground. And I just appreciate that you stay there.
So I have a question about burnout. You had a health crisis that came up while you were working for your family. Even though you had that sense of purpose and had that firm sense of self, how has that changed? Do you still have a fear of burnout, even though you've found this alignment in a new path?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I always am worried about burnout. I always am worried about that. And that's why I feel like I run my life in such a way that I'm always, sort of measuring and taking the temperature and the energy and what do I have? What's my capacity? That's been huge for me. I would say from the beginning of doing this, that's been really big for me. I have a business coach who's like specialized in burnout, and I work with her. I've been working with her since before I wrote the first book. So that's 5 years now. And I'm going to work with her again on this next book. And it's just really all about, how can we not have that burnout? And for me, it's really important. Like it allows the work to happen, because if I'm burnt out, I'm just not going to be able to fully meet that person that's been waiting a couple months to meet with me. So I think that's the most important thing. And it really does like dictate my life of like what I have energy for, what I don't. It's interesting. Yeah, that's still a huge thing for me.
Has other work that you've done navigating your PTSD and the things that come up for you within that protocol, has any of that been helpful for you in exploring your mediumship, like walking that line of spiritual and physical and how you balance that?
Yeah, I feel it really has. Like, I think so within mediumship, when we're connecting and I think, first of all, I want to say, because like a lot of people listening might think like, oh, this doesn't apply to me, but most people that have lost someone are connecting. So when I say in mediumship, I mean when you sit and you speak to your loved ones and you have that feeling of communication, no matter how subtle, because mediumship is really subtle, that's what I mean when I say mediumship. So for when we're practicing mediumship, it takes our whole body. Like our body is our instrument, right? And so the more that we can learn about our body and different responses we have, I think the clearer it can become. And so in the last couple of years, I've, been interested in like somatics and like how different things present in my body, how I can move my awareness and attune to different sensations. All of that stuff is so helpful. And for anyone, navigating PTSD, I know we talked about that in the first interview. I think that learning about yourself, not necessarily like your internal psychology, but learning about how this stuff is stored and carried in your body and how you feel when you connect to spirit, what parts of your body like light up for you, that can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, I completely agree because we're through CPTSD and we're through PTSD, but it is a hollowing out of what's going on inside of your body that isn't attached to the present moment,
Yes.
So,
yes.
Right. So like when we're in a session or we're in a trance, we aren't being bombarded by signals from our body that are echoes from things that have happened before. So the more you're embodied and within somatics or meditation of any kind, yoga is a meditation.
Yeah.
It balances or at least quiets the hum of all of the other like kinks that are going on inside of you so that you can differentiate what isn't you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I also just want to say for anyone that's listening that, has experienced a lot of trauma, and most mediums, intuitives, tarot readers, we've experienced a lot of trauma in our life for whatever reason. The spirit world doesn't ask us to be perfect. They just ask for a presence. So it isn't a barrier to do this work. It's just something that has helped me, like the human side of me, to deal with this life and existence.
So personally, hypervigilance is my main PTSD response, where the volume is turned up to 11 and all the little sensations become one large and loud sensation. If someone is at the beginning of their journey, and perhaps they're aware that they're highly sensitive or tuned into something, how do you think they could discern between the alarms and the safety responses? Like, how could you tell? What is coming from within you and what is coming to you?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing is that when we connect to the spirit world, when we connect to intuition, and so for me, sort of define intuition as our own soul. It's a bit more of a spiritual definition. But what I notice is that feeling is very loving. And it's a calming sensation. It can be very big. It can be exciting. It can expand us and elevate us, but it's a very different way from a sort of, trauma response or overwhelm. And so everyone is different. And one thing I really encourage people to do is to kind of find their own, indicators or their own calling cards that they're connecting. And so, I experience just that feeling of peace, of love, that part of me that's like judgmental or questioning or doubtful is really not present when I'm fully connected. And that's just like little by little, spending more time in that space of connection, we can start to build it up and build it up. And I think it becomes easier to recognize. But yeah, if someone is dealing with a lot of trauma, I definitely would recommend like getting support, going at your own pace, because it can be very confusing.
So Sheryl, would you say that your first book is a good next step after or even while exploring one's own nervous system?
I feel it is. It's really an offering. First of all, I love that it's my first book. Yeah, that's so encouraging because I'm in the middle of trying to write a second book, so it feels good. But yeah, it really is meant to meet anyone. And the feedback that I've gotten, so first of all, if anyone is thinking like, oh, should I write a book? It is so much work and it costs so much money to like self-publish a book. For me, it's really been worth it. And what I will say is that if someone actually buys my book, reads my book, finds me, books a session, comes to a class, it is such an amazing connection because they already know all these things, right? They already know my theorem, everything. There's all this trust that's built. So I would say if you're doing it for like, financial reasons, don't do it. But like if you're writing a book because you feel like a calling and you really want to get your just weird message out into the world, into other people's hands and your own personal experience, definitely do it, because the people that will find you, I can't even believe just the diversity in folks that have found me, like all ages, all places, that just say like, I felt like you were just talking to me. And so, yeah, I definitely feel like that's a good place to start. And in terms of like teachers, spiritual teachers, I think being able to read someone's book before you put your trust in someone just feels like a really nice offering to me. I wish I would have had that. And so for me, putting my writing into the world, and I write every week, for free on Substack to do that, so that people can kind of know me a little bit, or like know where I'm coming from, because it is such an exercise in trust to be like that communication between, our most loved ones that we miss, or like that feels sacred. And so, yeah, I just offer that to people that just want a little bit more, other than reading Google reviews or like other people's experiences. You can really get, I think, a lot of information if someone has a sense of themselves out in the world. So that's what the book's meant to be, personally. But yes, I definitely think it's meant to be accessible to really anyone that's just wondering things.
These are great questions. And actually, it's bringing up a question that I have, that I think that I've talked about with people who aren't psychics. And I don't know if I posed this question to another psychic, but sometimes I view mediumship as the ability to take on another person's energy. Now, it's a bit different than clairsentience or compassion or empathy, meaning that you are affected by their feelings and then feel the effects of their feelings.
Yeah.
But this is more, say, to what Jessica's talking about with somatics and PTSD and hypervigilance, but this is more about relationships where someone allows their partner's energy to fully take over. And then they kind of become this extension of the other person, like the codependent relationships between martyrs and narcissists. And I wonder, is that a kind of mediumship, or should we keep mediumship to the spiritual world, which makes more sense? But out of curiosity, what do you think about that?
I mean, I feel like the biggest difference there, and so the reason I would say it couldn't be a direct like parallel, is that when we're with mediumship, when we share our energy and blend our mind with spirit, the goal is healing, and it's an all loving communication, and the spirit world is all loving. In my mind, that's what I believe. And so I feel like we are not in any danger of being harmed. We can totally open ourselves, surrender as much as we choose, and the spirit world doesn't desire to harm us. They have our our highest good. That's at the forefront. And so in different relationships, I've definitely seen, clients and experienced myself where you may be in a relationship with someone who, just sort of feeds on like that energy, and you may be so attuned to them. You may know what they're thinking before they say it. And that's like, you sort of can anticipate better than someone who's not tuned in. And that can certainly become a cycle. But I feel like people have choice in all of this. Like, we can choose to communicate with spirit or not. As hard as it may be, we can choose to leave relationships that don't elevate us or that harm us. So I always want, people to know they have a choice.
I appreciate this answer because it does separate mediumship from these intertwined relationships, these traumatizing relationships, by way of saying that this is what I want to do. This is who I am. I connect to love, and I'm connecting love to love, meaning the passed on person and the person still alive. And you're taking it seriously. You are making that choice every day to connect. And what would you say to somebody who has been through this trauma, who's really wanting to become a medium, but doesn't really know how to disconnect from over empathizing or over connecting with people, or when to communicate this?
Yeah, I mean, trauma, I think, really opens people to, they may have that need to connect with the other side. And, connecting to spirit doesn't always mean, I'm very like disciplined in what I'm doing. So I'm doing this for my work. I'm doing it all the time. If someone is just really struggling, or at times in my life where I haven't been well, or, I've been having like medical things going on, you're in the hospital, like I'd be connecting to spirit. It doesn't mean I'm in a great place to share all of my impressions. It's sometimes I think that connection opens because there is a need for connection. And so I think, choosing to share it with the public and develop your mediumship is what I would say. Choosing to develop your mediumship is maybe different from someone who's having a really tough time and connecting to the other side. I think once we make that choice to develop it, that's where it maybe changes a bit.
That gets me thinking about the sequence of chapters in your book. And I do have a question. Why does chapter 3, from seeking belonging to setting boundaries, come before chapter 4, finding alignment?
Oh, yeah.
Is that something you learned for yourself in structuring your availability to this spiritual realm, or the spiritual realm?
I think it is. Yeah. So in the book, it's a sort of following a sequence of events. So it's following my younger self being in an abusive relationship. And then it's kind of following along to kind of finding myself a bit and finding that alignment. But I think probably the reason I put it in that order, and I would teach it in that order as well, and thinking about like my mediumship mentorship I have coming up in January, and I'm teaching that first. So I would say if we don't have a way to set boundaries with ourselves and our life with others, I don't know if we can always feel that alignment so clearly. I think it's a bit muddled. So the book starts with kind of knowing our essence, knowing our own energy, knowing what our own energy feels like. So then we can start to feel the difference between us and other people. And then we can start to set boundaries that really support us. And then we can feel like, are we in alignment with what our soul is asking for? I feel like most people, I would say everyone that I've met, we have this sort of different sides of us. We have our personality, like our human side, that has an agenda. And then we have our soul, that part of us that's really seeking maybe something very different. It's not always completely different, but there are these two parts. And I think bringing them into alignment is probably a lot of the work that we're here to do. We think about, soul path, or what we're here. Why did we incarnate here? What do we want to experience? I think that alignment is a big part of it. And it can happen at totally different times in our lives. It doesn't have to happen at the same time for someone else that it does for me. It can happen for many people, it's at the end of their life.
What I also love about that is that it brings up the idea that free will is just as important as boundaries, or the freedom to make mistakes is just as important as boundaries. Yeah. And if you don't allow yourself to make those mistakes, or if you don't allow yourself to let life happen and regret things, or move past things that you can't change, or things like that, that the boundaries that you set will be more authentic to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, alignment really means like, am I being true to myself? Like, and when I sit and think about who am I, what are my boundaries, what am I here to do? That I think that alignment is all about everything being true, and it's going to change. It's work that could be different day to day, could be different year to year. We're all changing all the time. So it's always relevant, those questions.
And okay, so do you feel like that alignment comes when you create the space for your own self through boundaries?
For me, I definitely need, I need space. I'm a huge fan of space in all kinds.
Are you an Aquarian moon? Is that right?
I'm an Aquarius sun.
Right. Jessica's an Aquarius sun. But you have Gemini too, right?
I am a Gemini rising, yeah.
Jessica's a Gemini rising.
That's too weird. I'm a Leo moon. Should we keep going?
Jessica has a Leo moon.
No. Really?
Yeah.
Really? Wow, that's pretty amazing. Okay, astrology twin. Okay, yeah, so we need space.
Heck yeah, you do.
No, we need space. And if I don't have space, like I can't feel myself in the same way. So, something simple, like I don't want to be too abstract, but like on Mondays, that's when I write. And I have that day is empty, that's for writing. You know what I mean? And so that's just something that helps me, I think, find my alignment. And that's a big reason why I write, I think, to find out how I feel about different things. And there's so much coming up when you're like plugged into, everyone else's consciousness. And you're getting questions all the time from people about spirit. Whether I have time to answer them all or not is a separate issue. But meeting with clients and meeting with groups, I need that time alone, I think, to process that. And I would say, yes, that's where we find the alignment. It's between us and spirit, or depending on what we believe, you and your soul, you for you.
Okay, so a couple of decades ago, I met another medium. I don't know if she became a medium professionally or not, but she had a real gift for it.
Yeah.
And she said that one of the reasons why we can imagine that the earth plane is so coveted is the 5 physical senses. Because every time she would interact with somebody who was coming through, the first thing that they would want to do is touch their loved one, that they'd want to physicalize the experience with their loved one. And I was curious, is there something that you consistently feel when they come through that is their connection to the human realm like that?
Absolutely. Yes. And so that desire to reach out, if there is that type of relationship, I definitely feel that. It's sometimes the first thing, a desire to kiss the person, to hug the person, to touch them. Absolutely. And sometimes I will vocalize that and sometimes I won't, depending on how I experience it. Always when I am doing that work, if I'm really blended, it's like having a hand or wanting to touch something on my desk. That is definitely something that I feel from spirit people, I would say, every time I work. That sensation of, having the body. I would say another thing that's really easy to feel is their loved one's voice. And so I always start a session by asking someone to say their name. And I say, however you think of your name is fine, because some people don't even book with me with their real name. but it's just to hear their voice. And so when I'm blended with a spirit person and they hear the voice of their loved one, there is this internal excitement that comes up. And that's something that's subtle but recognizable. Now that I've been doing this for some time, it's something that consistently happens. So if I'm ever doing a demonstration, I'll just say to people, I need to hear your voice. And then I can feel where I need to go based that spirit person just gets excited. And it's just a very subtle feeling of excitement, and you just know what it is.
Wow. Okay, wait. Then have people come to you that have wanted to communicate with somebody who's passed on that was traumatizing to them, that there might be some way of reconciling in their own mind who this person is?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they don't share that ahead of time and so a lot of times after readings, I know what's been said. I don't always know exactly what's transpired. I'm just sort of the channel. So I don't know the ins and outs of the relationship, but I definitely had that sense before where, someone is really difficult, maybe not always received immediately, but just, coming in to offer an apology, to express regret. I think that's a big part of this work. I don't feel like anyone has the obligation to have a mediumship, session for that reading, but if someone feels that, if you feel, I've had that experience myself where I've, lost family members where the relationship becomes easier now that they're in spirit. It was so hard when they were here. They were so unapproachable or unkind that I wasn't able to have that connection. And I am through mediumship. It's very different because then they have, the soul's wisdom. They can see the bigger picture and sort of zoom out on things, and they can see where they were accountable, and they can see our true motives and our really human limitations, things that I know I just won't understand till I, get to the other side.
Then what do you think about ghosts? And I've never seen one.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, what you think about the fact that a soul can leave such an impression that anybody who isn't even trying to be a medium can experience them.
Yeah, so I feel like there's two different things that go on here, and so I'll talk about that just quickly. So I think the most common time we see a ghost, I'm doing air quotes, it's like a psychic impression. That's my understanding. That's my experience, and I don't want it, to tell anyone. I'm not the authority, but this is what I experience and notice. If there has been something, that's happened, like I'm in Massachusetts, we have like the Lizzie Borden house, thinking places like that. One time I was traveling with friends and they wanted to stay in a hotel that like used to be a prison. And I was like, I'm not staying there. I would definitely see and feel like I would get these psychic impressions. And for me, it would be like flashes, maybe like holographic. Maybe I'd be having dreams and it could come through. It's not something I want to experience. I feel very secure in the knowledge that it's psychic energy. So meaning it's energy here that's like a psychic fingerprint of what happened. Energy isn't ever completely lost or destroyed. It goes somewhere. And so a lot of times we will feel things, see things in places. Then there's seeing spirit where you might say like a ghost, an apparition. That's so rare, like for me, because honestly, I feel like it's because the spirit world doesn't want to surprise us, disturb us, scare us. I would not be okay. I'm not okay with jump scares. I say that sometimes. So if I'm working, I could absolutely see a sort of image come up on my wall. I think, Vanessa, I work with a blank wall in front of me. So that's what I'm looking at when I work. And so faces, things will pop up on there. That feels really different. It can happen, but it doesn't feel scary to me. And it doesn't look like real. It looks sort of holographic. That's how I see it. So those are the two different things I experience.
Yeah, I don't like it either. I think that there is a misconception that if you choose to go the psychic route, that things will just sort of start to happen to you, or you're going to go crazy, or,
Yeah.
And I think that's what we talked about earlier is it's a choice. And the more you choose it, the stronger it gets, not the weaker you get, the more agency you have, not the more you're controlled by something. But I just was interested, since you are a medium, like if it, how you experience that portion of that world, because they are passed on people, like they are, I mean, there's wars have happened everywhere. Indigenous Native Americans have happened, like there's all sorts of death all around us all the time. And you must have to also, like with your boundaries, keep that away from you. So when you're around other people, do you need to consciously keep your boundaries up so that you don't hear their loved ones?
Yeah, I do feel like it's a practice. It is a practice. So I am very clear that I am not open for any type of communication when I'm not working. And so before I start a session, I take a deep breath, I open my awareness before I start writing, before I start teaching at different levels, right? But if I'm going to a Christmas party or something, I'm not open. I have friends that will say to me that aren't in this work, that will say to me like, oh, is there anyone around me? And I'm just, no. No, I don't know. I'm not working, right? So it's like anything else. I have really firm boundaries around that. I think it would take a really special circumstance or a really strong spirit person, really very determined. There'd have to be this high need. And even then I would sort of be like, you arrange it, you make it happen, right? Like I would never approach someone. And so, yeah, those are my boundaries in general. And I wear a lot of hats when I go out just to like remind myself. And it's just that physical reminder of like, you're closed.
That's smart. Jessica, do you have any questions?
Actually, yeah, I did. I have two questions. First, maybe it's the thinning of the veil with the full moon, or I don't know what. But lately, more than ever, I've experienced those playful little pokes and squeezes from what I'm certain is, the spiritual realm. A tap on the shoulder while my hands are occupied, or a nudge in the ribs that feels like a hand on my waist. So my first question is, before you made yourself consciously available, did you have any experiences with Anything beyond the pale?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's really common with folks. And when they start to open up either intuitive development or mediumship development, you'll look back on your life, on your experiences, and maybe through a different lens, and those things start to make sense. So, yeah, I definitely had experiences in childhood and throughout my life that were sort of like isolated or felt isolated. They didn't feel connected to me at the time. And looking back, they really make sense. And I talk a lot about that in Uncovering Intuition. I think of it as like artists, or like my mom's an artist, and it's like sometimes she goes through phases where she's not painting, but she's still an artist, and it just sort of like drips out of you, right? It's like you choose things for your home, or you're like looking for different creative pursuits. Even though she's not painting, she's always doing something. She just is. You see her and you can feel it, right? Just the way she dresses herself, everything is chosen intentionally. Color and mediumship, I think, is really similar. Even if we're not placing our focus there in that development, it sort of comes out in our life. Like we might see signs, or we experience synchronicity, or we have these sort of fated meetings, or, you know, maybe you find yourself being this sort of like counselor for like all your friend group. And so I think that mediumship, when you think of it like that, it's like, look for what's already happening in your life. Do you just feel drawn to things, drawn to people? Sometimes that just, it can make things a lot more clear.
Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. And my second question, which you've already touched on, is, do you believe what you're making yourself available to be is the spirit? Because it's like a big realm, not homogenous, but what's the word for one big thing?
Big, like consciousness, just like consciousness in and of itself, like the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I obviously don't have that answer. I feel like that would be, you know, a ridiculous thing to claim. But my working understanding is that I see the spirit world, and I guess what I mean is the entire like spiritual realm, right? And so is there one source? You know, maybe. I feel like there's billions of souls over there working in, you know, collaboration, working in cooperation with us. Animals I connect to in spirit, nature. You know, lots of people talk about angels. I don't know a lot about angels. You know, I'm not an expert on all these things. I just sort of know what's true for me. But I'm really open to all of that, different experiences, spirit guides. I mean, people that I experience that, you know, help me in my work and in my life. So I think it's really great for people to kind of feel what's true for them, and then to just sort of pull on that thread. So if you're someone that feels like you have a guardian angel or a spirit team or a loved one that's guiding you, I would say as long as it feels like a really loving, supportive relationship, that's the stuff. And I would just pull on that thread. You know, if you close your eyes and you see a color every time, or you just have this sense of presence, like a loving presence in front of you or beside you or behind you, like pull that thread and have a conversation with them. You know, I would say it's a relationship, right? So if we only ask like when we're, you know, in desperate need, we don't get a chance to really cultivate it.
And I also just want to acknowledge that that is a really good question, Jessica, because I think that when you start on a road towards spiritual understanding, you look at it as what we are all taught, which is there's this God, there's this one entity that gives us these guiding responses that we can tap into. When I think those that practice this, myself included, we're choosing who we talk to or how we go about translating something much larger. We can't wrap our head around what any kind of logos, if you want to call it that, is desiring from us or wanting from us moving forward. You know, I think that's the statement of we are the universe getting to experience itself.
Yes.
And so there's all these levels of communication that we have with the spirit world that makes more sense to us tiny little ants on planet Earth.
Yes.
And things like angels and guides, like you talked about, they have more wisdom to share that helps you transform, that helps you understand yourself better, help you live your life to the fullest. And then you have passed on loved ones. That's another kind of spirit you're talking to. And that's more on a human level, So this is like the universe getting to experience itself. And so you're dealing with the grief of human experience, the very visceral, down-to-earth experience of this larger context. And how do you handle that? How do you handle all that pain? Because I can't imagine what it's like to do that every day, especially as your career.
Yeah. So one thing that's so interesting is when I'm connecting to someone's loved one in spirit, I actually don't typically feel the emotion in the way that I would if it was just me present, right? So I sort of move my human self, my personality out of the way. And how I experience is like I'm blending my mind with the spirit person. Like it's almost like spirit is sort of blending with my mind. And then all the senses are, controlled through our mind. And so I am aware of emotion. I may be aware of, even evidentially like somebody's physical pain they have, but I don't feel that pain and I don't actually experience that emotion. I may want to process it afterwards on occasion. That I've certainly, had to, take some time and be like, all right, I need to reset myself after something that's really sad. But the nice thing is that I'm not involved. And so I don't have to have the words or find the words. Spirit is really working through me. And so they're giving you the words to say. And I think that's really, really important for anyone that wants to do this work is we don't need to have those answers. We are the channel. Something that will really help people that want to practice and develop their mediumship is the spirit world will use us, our inner monologue, our words, what we say, how we feel. So if we, speak to ourselves in a really loving way, it can be really easy to express, those messages. If we have a really harsh inner dialogue, that, we might have to sort of train ourselves into a more loving way of speaking so that we can hold space for people. But I have a lot of clients developing mediumship who are already therapists or nurses. Or psychologists, and they have that language already, and that makes it really easy. Or teachers, anyone who's dealing with the public in a loving way or, holds like a trauma-aware space, that makes it a little bit easier to connect with people because we already have that language, there's no judgment there. And so it's really natural, but spirit will work through us. We don't have to come up with the messages.
It's nice for people to hear that because I think that sometimes we do think we have to throw ourselves off a cliff for something like this.
No. And again, spirit doesn't ask us to be perfect. They just really ask us to be present.
And it's funny how people think that we have to allow some kind of possession to happen.
Yeah, it's not possession. That's a movie.
Exactly. That's not how it happens at all.
No, I've watched all the Conjuring movies with my youngest son, and none of them are accurate, but they're all fun.
Exactly. Entertainment purposes only is not real. So let's go ahead and start winding this interview down.
Yeah.
And I just want you to let everybody know what you have going on right now, what containers you have, how people can develop with you, what you're offering, what you're teaching, anything that's going on.
So right now, I am writing on Substack, so you can find me on Substack, Sheryl Wagner Medium, The Electric Curtain, and that's a free newsletter that you can just follow along with me, and I'm sharing just personal stories. I do a collective reading every other week now on there. And that's where I'm showing up and announcing anything else I have going on. I'm doing a professional alignment group in April, and that's for folks that are working either in some type of one-on-one container. So either they're working as mediums, intuitives, tarot readers, or therapists. We had a couple therapists last time. That's an 8-month group. And then in the summer, I'll be doing Psychic Summer School again. But the best way to stay in touch with me, because I'm not on socials right now, is through the Substack. And I'll give you everything I got through there.
Quick question, Sheryl. Where are you based out of?
So I'm based 10 miles south of Boston, so near Boston, Massachusetts. Yes.
Yes. So if you are in Boston, you should check Sheryl out. And also remember, she just announced that she's coming out with a new book.
Yes. Mediumship book, hopefully in the next year.
Is this one going to be more about you, or is it going to be more about teaching mediumship?
Yeah, I really want it to be more like interesting, of course, but more of a teaching book for someone that really wants to understand like what's happening for them. I think really the book that I would have wanted to read is what I'm aiming for. Very different from the first book that felt like it really overtook me and I just had this message and I had to get it out there. This one feels different. It feels like it's more about, I don't know, legacy or just adding my voice to other mediums that have written about this. People are always asking me, what book should I read? What book should I read? And I'm always like, this one, and I agree with those 7 chapters, or this one and just minus that part. So I really would love to say like this book and, my belief is in there. But of course, once you write it, you'll learn more things and it's ever evolving.
And then with anything, take what resonates and leave the rest.
Absolutely. That is like the biggest thing in this work because all of us have personalities. We all have experiences that we bring. It's not possible to do this work without having some flavor of us in it. And so we're not going to resonate with everyone. And there's no reason for anyone to, take something that just isn't meant for them. And really, I think spiritual authority is an interesting, concept. Like everyone should really claim their own spiritual authority. And when we're taking classes and reading books and, taking on other people's beliefs, really, it's got to go through this filter of what is true for you, right? Because every one of us is different and there's a reason for that. Now more than ever, we need to be able to find our own truth. Right? Not as a collective, like as individuals, we have to filter and what really feels true.
I think that's also a part of Pluto now in Aquarius.
I hope.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, well, it is such a long transit that, right. Like that we don't see the real fruits of its labor. If there is any, I mean, like it could just be more of our own mess of a fruit, like we have our own, our own personal awakenings, like you said. But Aquarius is about the authentic self, especially the weird self. The self that feels like an outsider, and being able to integrate that part of yourself, but also still remaining as a member of society. And it's protecting that member, right? Is it protecting that member of society based on just basic ethics rather than, who's better than who or what belief is winning this time
Absolutely.
around.
Yeah, I think we have to look at each other as, we're all students, we're all teachers. If we don't hold that belief, then we really can't accomplish much.
What a lovely conversation, per usual, with you. Thank you so much for joining us, Sheryl.
Thank you, guys.
It's always such a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, this was really fun. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Sheryl. It was a delight to talk to you.
Nice to meet you, Jessica.
Hopefully we'll talk again soon.
I would love to come and talk to you anytime.
Especially when that book comes out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll probably be more, maybe I'll put myself out there more once it's done.
Well, until then, we wish you a gentle winter. Thank you so much again, everyone, for joining us. And remember, if you'd like to know what's coming up in the sky, or if you'd like a weekly tarot reading, join my Substack, where you'll be alerted for both episodes that are coming up and also for my Sunday newsletter, This Week in the Sky, where we will go into all of the happenings of astrology. Until then, have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care.